Childhood and Growing Up. This is for B.Ed first year, exclusively for Pondicherry University, explained by Dr. Shubha, Vasavi College of Education, Pondicherry. Now this is Unit 6. We are going to deal with socio-cultural impact on learner, under which we will be dealing with social stratification, that is classification, dimension of stratification, factors of family, school and media influence, social norms, social acceptance, sociometric status, socio-empathic ability, nature of prejudice, socio-cultural impact on learning, difficulties and learning disabilities, cultural space of the learner, leadership influence in behavior. Now let's learn about the next concept. Every living thing has a visible physical boundary. That is, we have a skin. The skin is separating us, and the skin is the physical boundary which is separating us from the external environment. So the visible boundary is surrounded by a series of invisible boundaries which are more difficult to define, but they are just real. Like I'm sitting here. Around me, the air is there, the water particle, the humidity is there. So they are invisible, and the invisible boundaries are there. But the other boundaries begin with the individual's personal space and terminate with her or his territory. The other boundaries, which are invisible, begin with the individual's personal space and terminate with her or his territory. They come in contact with my physical boundary, and they are coming into my territory, into my boundary. This is what Hall says. Why we are talking about this? Let's see. So as we have this physical boundary and territory, what is a territory? Territory is the space. My territory is my home. Like what are the territorial animals? Like dog, rat and snake. So man is also a territorial animal. So they are in their territory, and they will not allow, a dog will not allow another dog into his area. A snake will not allow another snake into his area. So that's the territory. So we have a physical boundary and a territory. This can be defined as the cultural space. That's what we are talking about. So what is this cultural space? So this is something that varies greatly from culture to culture. Depending on where you live, the amount of space or distance that is acceptable in social situations can be very different. So what is this cultural space? It's a space or a community which has its own culture. It can be physical as home, the place where you grow up, or a metaphorical such as internet. So metaphorical is internet, that is, you don't see, like see what I think, that is my cultural space. Now I belong to this Hindu culture, I belong to this Christian culture, I belong to Islamic culture. So I have certain ideas and notions, and my cultural space is that which is conforming to Islamic ideas and principles, conforming to Christian ideas and principles. So if I am a Hindu, conforming to my Hindu ideologies. So that is my cultural space. That can be a home, a society, or that can be metaphorical. It's internet. In internet also, see, if I am a Hindu, unless I am greatly motivated to understand about other religion and I'm a yogic guru, I will not look into other religious matter. So I create my own cultural space in the internet also. So that's a boundary which binds you. So that's cultural space. So according to Martin, cultural space are places that are defined by cultural practices, languages spoken, identities enacted, rituals performed, and they often change as new people move in and out of the spaces. They often change. Like earlier, the culture of Brahmins were wearing madisar. They live in Agraharam. But now what's happening? So they have moved out of Agraharam. Means they are living in an apartment where so many other caste people are also staying. So the cultural space change as new people move in and out of the spaces. So can you follow this? Using the postmodern cultural spaces concept, that whenever there are local and international students together, the language used in conversation is standard English. This shows that there is a shift of language when there is a new member in the group. This is to create a sense of belonging or comfortable. Sometimes they discuss about assignment and studies. So this is a way shows the referential aspect in the conversation. In another situation, some international students could learn the language the locals speak, and hence this makes this to have the aspect of effective when they are talking about topics such as gossips, life, and opposite gender using the local language. So this is an example of cultural space. So students who are going to US for higher studies, they talk to other persons when they are in the classroom, like with the African American students, they speak in English. But they want to learn Spanish also to understand their culture. And if at all the Indian students, they gather together, they group together, they gossip and they talk about their classes and about their African American students in their own language. So the cultural space of them expands. Many people think that learning has to do with processes within learners. However, the culture in which a person learns sets the agenda for learning in several ways. It determines what is learnt and influences how and what is learnt and when it is learnt. What and how a person learns is influenced in large measure by the culture in which the learning occurs and the social interaction processes in which the learner engages. Means, if a person is living in a locality where there are more doctors, and if his relatives are doctors, mother is a doctor, father is a doctor, naturally he will tend to be a doctor. And if there are a teachers colony, naturally they will tend to become a teacher. So the culture influences a lot and the learning environment influences a lot. So it's the quality of these interactions in that social group rather than the processes solely within the learner. So what do you mean by solely within the learner? So the learner might have an inclination to learn psychology, but he is in a family of doctors, so he wants to do biology. So this determines the quality of learning outcome. The knowledge children learn is culturally determined. Formal education involves students learning culturally valued ideas. So this is how culture affects learning and affects education. Now leadership is one of the most salient aspects of the organizational structure of any institution. What's this leadership and how it affects education? Is ultimately about creating a way for people to contribute to making something extraordinary happen. So in a school, let's suppose if a new principal comes, everything will change. Whatever has been in practice with the old principal, this new principal will not like, and she will change everything. The leader is expected to exercise his or her power to influence the group. In educational institutions, the principal, the head, the leader plays a very important role in the accomplishment of its goal. The successful heads take off on school reforms and its effectiveness while depending on the set of actions by education planners and school administrators. The main duty of the principal is to enhance teaching and learning in the school. The task of the principal is to produce well-educated citizens through effective teaching and learning. The same thing, influence model for leadership. So leader behavior, from that follower responses, and from there comes the end result. So the leader can exercise different tactics depending on the characteristics and different styles, and with the commitment, and there will be resistance also. So after resistance there will be compliance between the leader and the follower. Then the end result will be follower satisfaction and group effectiveness. So a good leader in a school system will definitely bring out the best in their children. So this is about it.